Welcome. I'm here today with Georgina Komar, and my name is Perry Mardon. Welcome, Georgina.
Hi, Perry. Welcome, everyone.
And today, in this video, we are looking about how beliefs impact investing. So what we're going to do is start off with an example so you can see how beliefs drive behaviors and actions. Just imagine that you have a belief that dogs are dangerous. And we'll put this in context. Imagine that you're 3 or 4 years old and you're walking down the street and a little chihuahua comes out and it starts barking and it nips at your heels and you find yourself crying on the ground. And then when you're 8, it happens again. Not with a chihuahua, with another small dog. The belief that dogs are dangerous is going to get locked into your system with a lot of emotional load. Now, do you think it's good, Georgina, if you've been attacked by a dog, to develop a belief that dogs are dangerous?
For sure, Perry. You know, we have this inbuilt protection mechanism within ourselves that once we have an experience that's negative or fearful for us, then we are automatically attuned in anytime any situation occurs where it's similar to that initial experience. So we're always on our guard and our system really just revs up for that same fearful experience, and protective mechanisms come out to try and support us.
Of course. So what we know that these are survival basis beliefs. So as an example, if something happens that hurts us, it's good to develop a belief that that thing that hurt us is dangerous. In the same way that if you put your hand on a hot stove when you're 4 years of age, you end up with a belief that says stoves can be hot. That's a protective belief system. But in this example, imagine here you are, you're 45, you're a big weightlifter, walking along the road, feeling real tough, and a little chihuahua jumps out. And you're that person, you know, that got bit when you were 3 and you were 8. You pride yourself on your masculinity. Now, when that little chihuahua jumps out, what physical response will that big, tough bodybuilder have?
Well, emotionally, it's going to be the same as the 3 or 4-year-old whenever the original incident happened. Those feelings of fear and shock. And of course, that's going to also impact the grown man, because there's going to be part of him that's like, whoa, I can't believe I'm feeling this. But yeah. That panic and that fear will take over.
Yeah, great. So look, the context of this, everyone that's listening and watching, is that, you know, this belief system has been locked in with a lot of emotional load to protect the young child. That belief system won't disappear as that person gets older easily, or it won't disappear without work, conscious work, which of course we're going to be talking about. And so these belief systems locked in with an emotional load drive behaviors and actions, and they also drive an emotional response. So, you know, the long and the short of it, this person, once they see the chihuahua, is going to have an emotional response. The amygdala is going to be fired up, by the way, by that belief system, and the person's going to feel terror, which is designed to protect them. Then they're going to feel embarrassed and ashamed because they're like, oh, geez, I'm 45. I thought I was really tough. Joking. But then they'll walk across the road and avoid the dog. Okay, that's the kind of action that belief would drive. It's pretty basic stuff. So we start to get into the core of the teaching, and we can say that beliefs drive behaviors and actions. We've just seen that in the past example. Beliefs drive emotions. Now, emotions drive behaviors and actions, which we're going to be digging into in later videos. And actions lead to success or failure. So if emotions drive behaviors, we've got to be careful, because investing is not an emotional game, is it, Georgina?
No, it isn't. Emotions we need to leave at the door. We need to be logical and understand all the information and the knowledge that we have to bring our best analysis to the situation, free
Correct.
of any emotional impact.
Yep. So, you know, we're coming back and touching base with what we covered off on in video 1, which is that when you can't manage your emotions, and in this case, we're talking about how belief systems drive emotions, it will trouble you as an investor. Now let's take it into investing in a second and really look at some beliefs that might impact investors, so we can sort of really extend on this understanding. Before we get into that, I want to share a rule. The rule is the greater the emotional charge associated with the belief system, the more control we'll have over your behavior and actions. So this is why we use the dog as an example. The dog biting a 3-year-old will create terror in that child along with the belief, oh, dogs are dangerous, they can hurt me. And so we know that the stronger the emotion that locks in a belief system, the harder it will be for the person to not be impacted by that belief system, one, positive or negative, by the way. And it will be harder for them to change that belief system because it's now locked in as a protective mechanism. And we'll just take this back because it could be positive. Imagine someone that has, Georgina, they've grown up with puppies and they love puppies and they've never really been bitten by a dog. They're going to grow up with a belief system that says dogs are what?
Friendly, and you can go up to them and you can cuddle them, and they're really wonderful things.
Correct. And so even when you talk, you can hear it. It's like if you've got that belief system, it is going to drive an emotional charge. And you can even hear it in the way Georgina was talking, that, there's love, compassion. Oh, these are fun and cuddly. And so that belief system actually alters the chemical balance in the body and the hormonal balance in the body. So again, I'm just really wanting you to understand how much belief systems are tied into emotional responses and actions. Let's go to an investing example. And just covered dogs are fun to be around. We're going to go into this experience. Now, Georgina, I want you to imagine that, you grew up in a family of workers. And these workers, by the way, when we talk about workers, they go off and that they do 9 to 5 work or 7 to 4:30 work. And in their mind, that's the safest way of making money because in their minds, there's no risk associated with being a worker. Of course, that's a belief system, by the way. But imagine growing up in that family, Georgina, and all you heard about growing up is how Auntie June lost the family farm because she had invested in foolish schemes. And Grandpa Donald lost his farm because he also had invested in foolish things. Do you think you might end up with the belief that investing is unsafe?
Certainly, if it wasn't a conscious belief, it would certainly be an unconscious belief just by the sheer fact that people in my family are not talking about investing, or if they are, they're talking about it in negative terms. So I'm going to shy away from anything like that, and I'll probably be looking for other ways of making money that seems acceptable to what I'm used to in my family environment.
Great, because the rule of thumb is this, that you will tend to act in line with your belief system. And the moment you act out of alignment with your belief system, it will trigger an emotional response. And Georgina also covered off on something that we're going to go into a little bit deeper in this video. She was saying that, look, she may have been around that when she was younger. And as a young person, just absorbing these viewpoints from the family and hearing these stories about the relations who lost their money. And she would just unconsciously pick up those belief systems and they'll become part of her on an unconscious level, meaning it's outside of her awareness, but they will control her because we're sponges and we tend to take on the belief systems of our environment. Okay, so investing is unsafe, and you've already said one of them. What behaviors or actions would this belief drive? As Georgina said, she will tend to work for a living and avoid investing. I'll tell you what else it will do. If you had that belief system and you're reading the papers, what are the stories that you're going to start noticing?
Oh, all the doom and gloom about what's happening in the property market, or interest rates are going up, or instability in the economy worldwide. All of these doom and gloom type experiences will allow you to say to yourself, wow, see, I'm glad I'm not involved with that. It just reaffirms and strengthens the story.
Yeah, great.
And the belief.
It just strengthens it. So, Georgina talks about the reticular activating system. I'm going to get her to share a little bit about that in a moment. I use the word confirmation bias. So confirmation bias works in this way. We tend to only see those things that support our belief systems because the mind is a proof-seeking mechanism. So when we believe certain things, such as investing is unsafe, our mind looks for information to support that belief system and tends to dismiss information that pushes against that belief system, which is why you need to be able to critique and really question your belief systems, or you'll stay stuck with the beliefs that impact your investing. Now, Georgina, just quickly, because I'm very aware of time, but you often share a story about the reticular activating system in cars. Can you quickly just share that with everybody?
Yeah, definitely. If anyone has ever thought about buying a car, you start looking around and researching, and you decide that, oh, I'm thinking about this particular make and model, and maybe even this color. And as you're pondering it, as you're driving around or you're moving about in the world, it's amazing how many of those same models of cars, or maybe the same color, that similar look, we will find. We have what's called a reticular activating system. It's part of the amygdala part of our brain, and it looks for things that match in what's going on in our mind. So even on an unconscious level, if we have an idea of what type of car that we're wanting, our mind is going to be picking up our eyesight, and our mind is going to always be picking up anything that resembles what we've been thinking on. It's looking to prove or to pull in as much information that is in alignment with our beliefs.
Yeah.
So that's why we see them everywhere. We'll see things. Once we start to notice things, we'll notice them everywhere we go. Wherein before, if we weren't focusing on it, if it wasn't something that was part of how we were thinking, we wouldn't even notice those other vehicles.
Correct. So again, really important, if you want to be conscious, you have to be able to inspect beliefs. And remember, most people that are unconscious, they just believe their beliefs, and those beliefs are constantly looking for support around their belief systems. Now, just before we move on, what emotions would the belief that investing is unsafe trigger? Now, before we get into that, you could have been doing a lot of studying, a lot of analytical research on the best way to invest. You might be training with Results as an example, and that you're getting really good quality education. You're talking to their coaches, and their coaches are saying, yep, look, that property looks fantastic. The moment that person goes to invest, if they've had that experience growing up, what will they experience? No matter how logically and analytically sound the investment is, what will they meet within themselves?
There's going to be a part of them that's going to want to hold back, and they may not even be consciously aware of it. They may be distracted. They may find other things to do or get busy. There'll be things that will come into their mind that they may not even be aware of that will cause them to hesitate around moving forward with the investment. Logically, they're going to know that it's fine, but this emotion starts to impact us below our conscious awareness.
Right. Thank you, Georgina. We'll go into one other. It's easy to make money investing. Okay. Now, if you come from positive thinking, and there's a lot of rubbish out there, right, by the way, because, people think, oh, it's easy to make money investing. What a great belief to have. If you come from that viewpoint about beliefs. How could that belief be dangerous, Georgina? It's easy to make money investing.
Well, if we feel like we're invincible and things are really easy for us, we may not pay attention to the detail, or we may miss things that will come up for us that could be warning signs. There won't necessarily be things that would stop us from investing, but we may just miss them, not be able to focus on them, think about whether or not they could impact us. It's always important to look at the information and determine based on the experiences we've had, whether it's a good investment or a good decision. But if we're just thinking that, it's really easy, I can do it all the time, we could very easily miss things by not focusing and tuning into that detail.
Yeah, so it's highly likely to make someone bullish. However, I still think this is probably a good belief system to have. But, Georgina and I have been doing this work for many years. We know the dangers of any belief system. So it has to be in context, as we've just pointed out. If this is a strong belief system with a lot of emotional load, you will rush into investing and not do proper analysis, as an example. But if it's what we might call a functional belief, meaning it's not totally believed all the time, but there's a general sense that it's easy to make money investing, you'll tend to move towards investing and not be afraid to invest, which are good things.
Definitely a good thing, Perry. It's only when we're a bit egoic or cocky around, I don't need to do what everybody else does because it's easy for me.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just quickly going to run through the types of beliefs that we tend to want to inspect as investors. The first one is we want to inspect beliefs about self. So beliefs about self have got to do with capacity and deservingness. So as an example, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. They're all beliefs about self. I don't really deserve that. I don't feel good enough to have that. They're all just beliefs about self. We have to inspect beliefs about money, and you'll see why in a second. Wealth and power, as an example, so some beliefs about money and wealth and power. Rich people have ripped everyone off. You can't trust rich people. Or money's not isn't the answer to happiness. Or people with lots of money have misused their power. These types of belief systems. Or, there's something noble about poverty. It's good to be the struggling artist. These are all examples of belief systems about money, wealth, and power.
Oftentimes, Perry, religion actually can have an impact on that particular area of belief.
Correct. We're going to do a little run through on that, by the way, in a moment. We also have beliefs about investing in the economy. So as an example, we look out into the world and go, the economy is an amazing place at the moment. It's a perfect time to invest. Or it's a downturning economy. There's lack of consumer confidence. These are all belief systems that will impact your ability to invest. So you've got beliefs about self, beliefs about money, wealth and power, and beliefs about investing and the economy, etc. This typically the three that you would work with, Georgina, isn't it? When you're working with investors, that they're the three main sort of belief systems or themes that you go and work with.
That's right, Perry. And I have to say, the beliefs around self and the capacity and deservingness is often the strongest impact for most people.
Yeah, which we'll share a couple of stories about in a second. Because, and we're going to get into this, we have a conscious mind and we have an unconscious mind. The conscious part of our mind is what we know. The unconscious mind, there's all sorts of beliefs and emotions stored down there that we don't know about, and they can be very dangerous. Look what we're at. So you just heard me. Conscious is the part we know. The unconscious is the part we don't know. And by the way, it's really important to say that one of Georgina's and my specialties is our ability to read unconscious territory, meaning we are able to see what's happening for a person on the unconscious level and help them connect with that and surface those belief systems. In fact, just quickly, my whole life has been about constantly and continually shining a light into unconscious territory to pull up belief systems and patterns of behavior and operating that I haven't fully seen and owned before. And when I do that, life changes a lot. And I do that for every area of my life. So as an example of this unconscious versus conscious, you might be walking around and on the conscious level have a belief system. It's easy to make money investing. And that belief system may draw you into, say, as an example, training with results. But on the unconscious level, you have a belief system that says, I will always lose money. Now, I worked with an investor with this particular pattern, and let me explain it. He didn't know that on the unconscious level, he had this belief, I will always lose money. That was something his father told him constantly growing up. Oh, you're no good with money. You always lose money. You always lose money. Now, there's a rule. We've actually shared it, but you'll start to see how this works. We said that the mind seeks evidence for its belief systems. We can take that further and say the mind seeks evidence for its belief systems because the belief systems want to prove themselves to be true. Now, if you find that strange, just look at all the killing that happens in the world. because people believe their belief system so strongly. Okay, it's happening a lot at the moment. It's happened for many, many years. They're religious beliefs. Religious beliefs drive people to do some crazy things. Beliefs drive people to do all sorts of things that are just unfathomable, but that's the power of belief. So in this example, because I will always lose money, was locked in with a lot of emotional content because of the relationship with his father, but he didn't know about it because he was 45 when he came to me. He couldn't see this anymore. It was still sitting there on the unconscious level and always would constantly undermine his motivation. You know, think about it. On the conscious level, it's easy to make money, but unconsciously, the belief system, I always lose money. So he was a real procrastinator. He would lose focus until he started to surface this, and he could see how strongly it was driving his actions and behaviors. You could have, and Georgina talked about this before, I love to be wealthy could be a conscious belief. And on the unconscious level, you could believe I don't deserve wealth and good things. And just quickly, you know, the world is full of people with low self-esteem, low self-worth, shame, sense of not being good enough. And all those things lead to what we call non-deserving behaviors. So as an example, on the conscious level, if you've got that belief, I love to be wealthy, you might be actively out there. But if you've got the belief, I don't deserve wealth and good things, and there's an emotional charge, I guarantee you'll be finding ways of sabotaging or minimizing your success. And just to ground these concepts out, in a couple of the future videos in this series, we will be going into real client examples of how these belief systems have undermined clients' results, so they can be really grounded out and you can really understand how this works. This is just a brief overview of beliefs at this point. So the central rule is if your unconscious goals, agenda are different to your conscious goals, your unconscious will have strategies to sabotage your conscious goals. Just hang on to that because you'll learn more about that in later videos. And we're just going to quickly go, because we're nearly out of time, but we're just going to quickly go through, say, some of the major conditioning factors that impact people, especially on the unconscious level. Okay, so again, conscious is what we know. Unconscious mind is what we don't know about ourselves. Okay, and just to clarify, everyone watching and listening to this, if you hadn't gone to school and heard that you had a liver, your liver would be doing all sorts of things, but you wouldn't even know you had a liver. It would be unconscious to you. While there are all sorts of belief systems that are unconscious to you. Georgina, how many years have you spent surfacing unconscious belief systems that you didn't even know were there?
13 at least, Perry.
Right, okay.
Consciously 13. Consciously,
okay. So again, I'm just going to sort of create a picture before we go into this last part of this. Excuse me. Growing up, Georgina said this earlier. She said, if I grew up in a family environment, I'm just going to take on their belief systems. Just unconsciously. I'm not going to be sort of filtering them through going, are these true or not true? They're just bombarding you as a child. Okay, so not only if your family, but your media are bombarding you. Religion's bombarding you. Your cultural tribes bombarding you. Authority figures have a great impact on the beliefs that you just absorb. And so here you are, and I guarantee people that are watching and listening to this, you're walking around with all sorts of unconscious beliefs that impact your ability to invest successfully, and you don't even know you have them. It's like a fish in the sea. Fish doesn't even know about water. It just is. So if you want to be a conscious, good investor, you need to be able to thread through all your unconscious belief systems. So we're just going to quickly run through some of the what we might call the archetypal belief systems that have impacted many people in this culture where you're viewing this video. So as an example, the first one is Today Tonight, 60 Minutes and the Current Affair. These shows constantly show us, they show about 3 different themes and a few other stories, but there's 3 themes. But the theme that we're going to investigate, do you know the theme that we're going to go into, Georgina?
Yes, the Aussie battler.
The Aussie battler who's been ripped off by these evil investors or these evil business people. Okay, but regardless, the story is the Aussie battler has been ripped off by someone that's pursuing wealth. Now, why do they choose those stories, Georgina? These
they'll
people
get
aren't
people's
fools.
attentions.
Yep. They
Yeah.
know that many people in society have these belief systems, so they know if they show these stories, the viewers are going to get emotionally triggered and riled up, and that means more viewership. So they're constantly supporting this viewpoint of these rip-off merchants, these wealthy, wealthy people. By the way, when I try to find photos, this is sexist as well, when I try to find photos of women that represented rip-off merchants, I couldn't. They were all men, evil men misusing their power. Now, again, why are we telling you this? Because this media, these shows are impacting us constantly outside of our conscious awareness, unless we choose not to watch them, which is what I do. But we're looking at childhood here, basically. So we've all grown up with this type of thinking. Underlying story, reinforcing beliefs, greedy, unscrupulous, wealthy business people ripping off less fortunate and vulnerable. We constantly see it in cartoons. By the way, how often have you ever seen in a cartoon or in movies, how often have you seen a benevolent, wealthy, powerful person shown in the movies?
Not very often, especially in the past. Maybe more so nowadays, yes. But normally they're not benevolent at all. They're mean and evil, and they're the villain in the experience.
Correct. Now, just so you know, right, you can see The Simpsons here, of course. Again, the same story. I can go to, I think it's Revenge and Dallas. They're all the same story about how wealthy people are selfish, manipulators, rip people off, and unloving. Okay, and we go back to this first one with the documentary. The 60 Minutes and Today Tonight, and that same story. Okay, so I just want you to understand this. If you're being bombarded with this concept of how wealthy people are horrible and misuse their power, and you're on the conscious level going, I want to be wealthy, your unconscious is going, no way. People won't like you if you're wealthy because you're going to be one of those horrible people, one of those people that misuses their power and their wealth. You'll have strategies to minimize your wealth creation because the unconscious doesn't want you to be anything it has a negative association with. You will find yourself procrastinating, losing focus. As we go into the video series, you'll get more and more of examples so you really understand how this starts to work. Go to a couple more. Religion. Again, Catholic Church is one of the wealthiest organizations in the world, but constantly, what is their rhetoric around money, wealth, and power?
That it's the root of all evil.
Yep, it's a root of all evil. It's easier for a rich man to get through an eye of a needle than it is to get into heaven. These are the types of things that we're bombarded with from religions. In fact, you know, I don't think I've ever seen a positive story about wealth from any religion. Now, I could be wrong, by the way, but the predominant stories, again, follow the same theme. So the Buddhist tradition, excessive wealth and an extravagant way of life can become a source of attachment and create a fear of loss. So, you know, the underlying belief system or story is it's not spiritual or good to be focused on money. Okay, so, by the way, some of the greatest wealth creators were Mother Teresa, who raised millions. Money is power and money can help. Okay, so again, these types of stories that we're constantly bombarded with impact us on the unconscious level. We're being programmed, we're being conditioned constantly, which is one of the reasons why it's really good to hang out with people that are wealthy and have no unconscious negative stories about wealth. It really assists and serves. Here's another one, the work ethic. So if you grow up in a rural environment, the constant story was, you know, you can't trust people that make money too easily. Okay, and somehow they're wrong or evil because, you know, the only way to make a lot of money is to work really hard. You do a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. So those types of story from rural working class backgrounds will set you up again to be going, well, you know, I don't trust wealthy people. The whole story is that they're not honest, you know, that they haven't worked hard for their money. and you might be consciously going out to create wealth, but these unconscious stories will be impacting you, lowering your motivation because there's conflict within the belief systems. So I think that, Georgina, we could probably stop here in the sense of we can keep going. You and I could go on because we work with investors all the time, especially you. You've probably seen, hundreds of different conditioning factors that impact investors, but I think that's enough to get everyone sort of thinking and understanding. Is there anything you want to finish off with here?
Perry, I guess the only thing that I would say is as we start to learn about these unconscious parts of us, it's always important to remember that it's not really our fault. We've established these beliefs based on our conditioning around people who are important to us, who we want to do the right thing by, who we want to please. There's a lot of survival involved in the creation of our beliefs. We want to do the things that are going to allow us to feel accepted and loved and supported by the people around us. So we just need to be aware that uncovering these beliefs doesn't have to be a negative experience. It's not a reason to beat ourselves up, but it actually can open up a pathway for us so that we can start to become aware of these beliefs that sabotage us and recognize that the truth as we learned it then is not necessarily the truth that we're experiencing now.
Yeah, thank you. And that's an important thing to finish off on. And again, premise is that these stories get developed as we're growing up, and they may serve us, as example of the dog story, to protect us. But when we get older, if we keep being run by these belief systems, the belief systems from our society, from the media, from our own personal experiences, from our family conditioning, we're being controlled like robots as investors, where in this work, what we're doing is threading through and finding out what beliefs are useful and supportive of us as investors. And that's one of the key things that you do with all the investors that you work with, isn't it, Georgina? That's
right. It's kind of a process of understanding what the beliefs are and deciding if it's time to upgrade them or adjust them to be more realistic in the current environment.
Yep. Right. Thank you, Georgina. Thanks, everybody. I hope you got a lot from that, and we look forward to working with you in the next video.